The boy was having a bad day, but when he saw an old lady getting on the bus and couldn't find his seat, he didn't think twice. He gave her his seat, not knowing how important it would be. She was happy and gave him something secretly that would change his life. Parker had a rough day again as he rode the bus home. He often had these bad days lately and didn't know why. Lost in his thoughts, he didn't realize the bus was getting full. Suddenly, something caught his attention. The bus was packed and there were no seats left. Then an old lady got on the bus. Parker was surprised that nobody offered her a seat. Despite feeling tired and wanting to be alone, Parker couldn't ignore his manners. He caught the old lady's attention at the next stop and asked if she wanted to sit. This small act would change his life. When the lady turned around, she was surprised to see a young man offering his seat. She smiled and accepted. Giving up his seat made Parker realize how crowded the bus was. As he prepared to leave the bus, he struggled through the crowd. He didn't realize he passed the old lady until he felt something. Turning around, he saw what it was. At that moment, he noticed the old lady had put something in his jacket pocket. He wanted to ask her what she was doing, but the bus was so crowded he couldn't reach her and was pushed out. Parker watched the bus drive away, thinking about what had just happened. He put his hand inside his jacket pocket and was surprised to feel something like a piece of paper. Did the old lady give me money as a thank you? But when he pulled it out, he saw it wasn't money at all. It was a tiny piece of paper with some code scribbled on it. It looked like the older woman had written it hastily while on the bus. The note said 659,724. He was baffled by this apparently useless piece of paper, but then he noticed something was too quick to judge. Shining through from the other side was another message. Parker quickly turned around the note and read the second message: visit Lakeshore Drive 6002 at 8 o'clock. He didn't recognize the address. What is this? Why did she give this to him? The questions flew through his mind. Parker looked at his watch. He had 2 hours before it was 8 o'clock. What should he do? When he looked up the address, he noticed there was a restaurant nearby. He made up his mind and decided to get something to eat while trying to determine what to do. After he entered the restaurant, he ordered dinner and ate it. Parker thought about the possibilities. What would the older lady want from him? Could he trust her? Was it a trap? He simply did not know the answer. Ultimately, his curiosity got the better of him. He needed to know what this was about. While making his way toward the address, Parker kept checking his watch. It was almost 8 o'clock, but he should be able to make it in time as it was just around the corner. A slight shiver went through his body. Was he really doing this? Not knowing his life was about to change. The address turned out to lead him to an apartment building. When he went up the steps, he was met by a closed door. He searched for a doorbell, but after a while he saw they were inside the hallway. What now? He double-checked the note and remembered the code on the back. There was a little keypad on the side of the door, and he entered 659,724, after which a door beeped and opened. He looked at the signs and apartment 602 was on the 6th floor. After climbing on the stairs, he arrived at the door and knocked, not knowing what to expect. Parker heard some rummaging came from the other side of the door. It took some time, but then he heard light footsteps approaching him and the door opened. The older lady stood in the doorway and smiled when she saw who had knocked. She invited Parker in, who hesitated momentarily but eventually followed her inside. One question had been burning in Parker's head all this time, and he couldn't wait to ask it. "Why did you hand me this note?" He blurted it out. The older woman hadn't even handed him his tea yet. She smiled at him, thought about it for a while, then started talking, baffling Parker. The lady started the story by telling how she overheard him talking on the bus. Parker had been on the phone on the bus, and the old woman secretly listened in. The calls were a sensitive topic, as they were the reason his days had been going so bad lately. He felt some anger coming up. The older woman had noticed it bothered Parker. As she continued her story, she felt sorry for him because she overheard that he hadn't gotten the job he had been hoping to get, which caused him many problems. To her surprise, that wasn't the only thing causing his bad day. He had been talking on the phone with his dad. Parker's mother had suddenly fallen ill and needed expensive medicine he couldn't pay for. He had been trying to get his father to help them, but since the divorce, his dad had cut all contact and wanted nothing to do with him. Until now, the lady had been talking about his life and problems without Parker saying anything. It frustrated him. She meddled with his life. "Why do you care? Why are you eavesdropping on my life?" he asked abruptly. He immediately felt sorry and looked at the older woman, but to his surprise, she smiled softly. "I understand you feel that way." "I'm sorry," she said. It looked like she just realized it. It just occurred to her she hadn't introduced herself, which she immediately did. "I'm Meredith, and I care because I've been looking for someone." Parker's frustration was replaced by confusion. Looking for someone? What does she mean? It was as if Meredith knew what was happening inside his mind because she started to explain immediately. As it turned out, Meredith had been alone for a long time and had little to no contact with other people. Now that she was getting older, that caused a problem she was trying to fix. As Meredith was talking, Parker started to question where this was going. Could it be? Only a little later, he got the confirmation of his thought. "I've been looking for the right person to put in my will," she said, "and I think you are that person." These words came as a shock to him. Parker didn't know what to say or how to react. Was this woman serious? Why him? What was going on? It took a while for him to get his head on straight, but he eventually managed to ask one of the questions that had popped up in his head. Why me? It looked like Meredith had hoped he would have asked that question as she moved a little closer to him. She explained to him that she had been looking for someone who understood her, was kind-hearted, and was just a nice person. She grabbed his hand, and "That's you." Without giving him a moment to let it all sink in, Meredith continued explaining that she couldn't wait to start sharing and helping him. She offered to pay for his mother's medicine or just give him money. Parker felt overwhelmed by all this news and her offer, but knew deep down what to do. Despite how great this opportunity was, he knew he could never accept this. It didn't feel right to receive something so big and life-changing from someone he didn't know. With pain in his heart, he declined her offer. "I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I don't think I'm the right person." Did he do the right thing? Parker couldn't look at her. He felt it would be too awkward. Then Meredith responded, "Well, I can't force you." He looked up and saw a thoughtful look on her face, which suddenly disappeared. He could have never expected what she was going to say next. He was kind of relieved when Meredith said she had a different idea. Although he had declined the offer, it was still life-changing and he wasn't sure if he made the correct decision. "What if I give you a task, and when you complete it, you get rewarded?" Parker was surprised by this idea. It was hard to decline her plan. Parker refused her first offer, but that took a lot of willpower. The more he thought about it, the more acceptable it became. With this plan, it was like he was working and getting a salary. But what did he have to do? Before he knew it, they were discussing a plan further. Had he really just accepted a life-changing thing from a stranger? What would he have to do to get it? Meredith still hadn't answered that question, and he became a little nervous. Suddenly, she had it, making Parker feel nervous all over again. Her idea wasn't what he had expected at all. "You have to show who you really are. You have to prove you're a kind person," she said. Parker thought about this for a while and realized he needed to do something to show Meredith. She seemed very happy with her idea, but Parker didn't understand why at first. She wanted Parker to believe in himself. She hoped that by completing the task, he would feel like he deserved her inheritance and would accept her help. Parker was glad he found a good way to help his mom, but he didn't know what to do next. He couldn't just wait for Meredith to give him the help he needed. He had to figure something out himself, right? He tried hard to think of something, but nothing came to mind. He looked at Meredith for help, but she told him he had to do it on his own. He felt a little disappointed, but he knew it was fair. He wanted to earn it. They agreed to keep in touch, and Parker left feeling determined. This was his chance to prove he was the right person. As he walked home, he thought about what he could do. Suddenly, he remembered why Meredith chose him. He had shown kindness by giving up his seat on the bus. That's what he needed to do again. It didn't take long to come up with a plan. The next day, Parker went to see Meredith early in the morning. He didn't tell her what they were going to do, so she had a lot of questions when he arrived. But Parker wanted it to be a surprise. When Meredith was ready, he took her to a retirement home. Parker saw the worried look on her face and reassured her. "Don't worry, I'm not leaving you here." They went inside and Parker found the seat for Meredith. He had called ahead, so everything was ready, and he showed her what he had planned. Soon after, they went into the big room where old people were eating, playing games, or talking. Parker smiled at Meredith and took out a deck of cards. He asked if anyone wanted to play. Meredith was amazed. Parker came to help at the retirement home, but he also thought it would be good for Meredith to meet people again. He stayed for a long time, having fun, chatting, and making jokes. He didn't even notice Meredith talking to the staff. It felt like hours before Parker remembered why he came, to finish his task. He looked for Meredith, who was chatting happily with someone. Before he could join her, a man in a suit tapped his shoulder. It was the boss of the retirement home. He wanted to offer Parker a job because he heard good things about him. Parker was thrilled and accepted. This was what he always wanted, a job to help his mom. When Parker told Meredith, she wasn't surprised. "I knew you were the right person," she said with a big smile. Parker thanked her and said he didn't need her help anymore, but he wanted to keep in touch. Sadly, Meredith passed away a few years later. At her funeral, Parker discovered she had kept her promise. In her will, she left everything to him as a thank you.